You are listening to Visionaries Wrestling Network, providing your perfect podcast experience.
Today we have a very special guest, Primetime Pro, Mister Gator. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to see some familiar faces during the lockdown.
And we're actually recording this on the Wednesday. This is coming out on Monday, and actually yesterday was the 1 year anniversary. And I know I'm sure Mason's gonna refer to that at some point. I know he's got a lot of questions, so to make sure we get through them all, let's make a start, Mason.
So let's start with the important things. Why is a hot dog a sandwich?
Well, I look at it like this. A hot dog is a hot dog without the bun, like ham is ham, and ice cream is ice cream. But a hot dog sandwich is a sandwich, like a ham sandwich is a sandwich, or an ice cream sandwich is a sandwich.
Now, it's actually interesting. I think we can announce our guest for next week. Our guest for next week is actually the first Primetime Pro Wrestling champion, Bro Keller. And I was actually doing a little bit of research on him. And one of the matches that came up was, somebody said on commentary, Josh Fuller is a wrestler, then a hot dog is a sandwich. All right, go ahead, Mason.
Funny.
Yeah, I like that quote. I think it was Kevin Ford.
For people who aren't familiar with you, can you tell us how you became Coach Gator and what that character's role was?
Sure. So I originally had a couple of ideas, and I had pitched them for a while. The character originally was totally different, but we did some massaging and maneuvering, and the Coach Gator concept was that you had this old guy, this old school guy, kind of like Mickey from the Rocky movies, who had seen everything and wanted to bring wrestling back to his glory years. And then I worked with the gifted Isaiah Frazier for an extended period. And then, of course, we ended up putting together the Gator Pit as a stable that had 5 or 6 different people in it. So that's kind of, the development of it was really interesting, and how it was originally conceived, and then where we ended up going with it. We did a lot of promos, and we put them out online, if you might remember. And we did a lot of things that were a ton of fun. So it was a fun character to explore, and it was a fun character to kind of grow for the year or however long I was doing that.
One of our first memories of you was you handing out Gator bars, and I managed to get one. My dad looked online and couldn't find these. Where did you get these from?
It's very funny. They were at Safeway, not far from the venue, and I have not been able to find them again. They were sort of discounted, so it is possible that they don't even make them anymore.
Wow.
One of our favorite memories of Coach Gator was when you appeared from under the ring towards the end of an event. How long were you under the ring, and what did you do while you were under the ring for so long?
I was under the ring before doors opened, and I was under there until I popped out to pull ref Todd Myers out to break up the pin. So doors opened half an hour before the show, and I think there were 2 or 3 matches before that. I remember Mac Buckler wrestled Jeff Cannonball. Shotzi might have had a match right before. Anyway, and then the match itself was Anthony Green versus Tim Donst. And we had talked about what was going to be my cue and how everything was going to work out. So the cue was that at some point, the Platinum Honeys, the 2 ladies that would accompany Anthony Green to the ring, they would come off of the side of the ring that I was on. And then I would come out and I would pull Todd out, and etc. What I did for that hour, 2 hours, however long it was I had my phone, so I was texting with folks and listening, and you hear every single bump under the ring from that position. And I was trying my best to be able to see what was going on in the crowd without showing off that I was under there. And we really created a really cool moment that people still remember and talk about that came off really well. It was really, really cool. There were some original plans for me to come up through like a trap door in the ring, and that was talked about, but we just couldn't make it work, so we just decided this was simplest. So everyone kind of knew what was going to happen, and it's really one of those memories that everyone talks about and remembers that was there. And some people think I somehow crawled around and came out from the back when this happened, but that would have been impossible without being seen or causing like a little bit of a commotion. So I was under the ring that whole time.
With the transition from Coach Gator to Mister Gator last year, can you tell us exactly what your role is at Primetime Pro Wrestling?
So I am the owner of the LLC that runs Primetime Pro Wrestling. I am the president of the Primetime Pro Wrestling as far as the Mister Gator character, and I am also the promoter of record. I'm licensed in the District of Columbia as a wrestling promoter, and with Lolo McGrath, I am one of the two co-founders of it.
Can you tell us the role of Lolo in Primetime Pro and how important that partnership has been to the organization?
You know, I've said many times that there could not be a Primetime Pro Wrestling without Lolo, and it's true. They are the chief brand officer, so they deal with our branding, our marketing. They've put us with sponsors. They were the connection to DC Brow, where we've had 5 of our 6 events. And they were the original connection with the Combat Sports Commission to bring independent wrestling into DC. So Lolo has done so much for Primetime, and our partnership is perfect because they do a lot of things that I would have no interest in, and I do a lot of things that they would have no interest in. So we work it really well. We haven't had any real disagreements that we couldn't get resolved in a friendly manner. You know, we're very, very close personally and professionally. So without them, there really would not be a Primetime Pro Wrestling.
How do you start a wrestling promotion, and what are some of the hardest things about this that people might not be aware of?
It's funny that you ask, because I was going through my phone yesterday because I have notes on all of the shows, and I have a note I wrote from about 14 months ago when Primetime Pro Wrestling was being created, and it's a note about what you need for a wrestling show, and it lays out everything you need just as far as the very basics to the things that folks may not think about. So you need a ring, obviously. I like having the barricades, so I wanted barricades. We need chairs for the fans. We need tables for the wrestlers and our announce team. You know, we need a locker room area. We need pipe and drape. And then the staff and the personnel that you need. You need a ring announcer. You need a commentator or 2 or 3. You need someone to run the sound, someone to ring the bell. You need, you know, all these different things, just like the nuts and bolts of it. So in DC, we have a commission. There are a number of states that do not have a commission. We have a commission, and so you have to be a licensed promoter, a licensed wrestler, a licensed ring announcer. You have to go through that process. Every wrestler has to submit physical and blood work, and then the day of the show, they have to go through a physical with one of the commissioned doctors. So there's a lot of little things that you might not think about in terms of putting together a wrestling show. I mean, there's the big things kind of come together, and I'm not even talking about the flyers and the promoting and the social media and connecting with IWTV or another service. IWTV, I think everyone agrees, is number 1, and we're very, very lucky to have a great relationship with them. So there's all those things that kind of come together, and we have a great team at Primetime that we're able to count on and get through. And every show is a little bit of an adventure because you never know what little things may happen. Travel problems, ring problems, problems, commission problems, fan problems, but we've had 6 fantastic shows, and I am looking forward to the next one, whenever that might be.
What were your goals for Primetime Pro when you started in May last year?
I think our big goals for Lolo and I were one, to ensure that there was independent professional wrestling in the area, and to create this DC feeling to it. And we talked about the Grapple region, our little area of the world that has Fight and Crab and Flying V, some fantastic promotions. And we wanted to create a great atmosphere and be able to work with personnel and talent from other companies around, and obviously we work with folks from all of those promotions. And we wanted to give opportunities to folks that may have been on the cusp, like a Bro Keller. Bro was right there to break out, and we were very confident in his abilities, his connection with the crowd, and his energy, and so on. And of course, the current Primetime Pro Wrestling champion, O'Shea Edwards, he had just come to the area to train at the Ring of Honor Dojo, and he was someone that was not as familiar to the fans in this area, and we wanted to give him that kind of opportunity and give him a platform. And Effie, who is our Primetime Pro Wrestling 51st State title holder, he was someone who is a very big independent wrestling star, is well known all over the world, and we wanted to bring in folks like that who our fans were really wanting to experience. And seeing Effie live is definitely an experience. So, we really wanted to create a very safe, inclusive, open locker room and wrestling promotion, and I think our record on that speaks for itself.
Is it you who decides the feuds and who gets the what match? And also, how far do you plan ahead on storylines?
I'll answer the second question first. Right now, as everyone listening knows, we're in a quarantine. You might ask later when our next show is, and I'll answer that now and say I don't know, because a lot of this is out of our hands. The District of Columbia, the mayor's office has to decide on what will be allowed. We are in constant communication with people from the commission. Lolo and I are in constant communication. Our team is in constant communication. But before all of this happened, we had 4 or 5 things that we knew were going to happen throughout 2020. We had plans for putting certain feuds together. We had plans for putting certain people together and being able to tell stories. And in independent wrestling, it can be very difficult to tell stories and put together angles, because people come in and maybe you don't see them for 3 months or 6 months or a year. But it was important to us that the folks who we work with on a regular basis were in interesting stories and had interesting things to do on all of our shows. Now, who decides all of these different things? At the end of the day, I'm the promoter, I'm the booker, the matchmaker. It's my responsibility to create and use all of the talents that I have. However, I'm not going to be so arrogant as to not listen to what other folks have in mind. And Lolo has gotten really into some of the booking, just as far as, the ideas, like what's the logic, show your work, basically. And of course, we have an incredible amount of talented people with lots of experience. We have O'Shea, we have Effie, we have our tag team champions, the Kings of the District. We have Pretty Proper. We have Mark Haggerty and Ariella, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but you understand that we have an incredible amount of talented folks. Jason Heat, who's our commentator, is, the artistic mind behind Flying V. So I am not so arrogant as to think that I know everything. So it's a cooperative effort, of course, at the end of the day. And in my opinion, I think this is the best way to run a wrestling company. You need one person that has that deciding factor. The buck stops with that person. And as far as the booking and the promoting and the storylines that we put together, at the end of the day, without a shadow of a doubt, let me get all my wrestling cliches out, the buck stops with me.
What is the scouting process for bringing new wrestlers into Primetime Pro?
That's an excellent question. We went in knowing that there were certain people that Lolo and I were already familiar with that we wanted to have. Obviously, we wanted Bro Keller, Isaiah Frazier, Elo Neal and Jordan Blade, O'Shea, Mikey Banker, Capital Vices, Pretty Proper, Faye, Ariella, folks who were part of that first show, the first and second show. And as far as folks that we were not familiar with, a lot of it is word of mouth. A lot of wrestlers will say, it'd be great to bring in this person or that person. We have a great relationship with promoters all over the country, but particularly near us because, it's more of a geographical thing where, we have a lot of folks that work for, Joe Kim with Battle Club. We have a lot of folks that work with Matt Griffin down in Action and Dylan Hales and the SCI folks. So that's how someone like Jaden Newman was able to come in and main event that second show. O'Shea was familiar with him, and I had seen some of his stuff on IWTV. And of course, bringing in someone like Joey Ryan or Effie or Jimmy Jacobs, or Still Life, who was the reigning Young Lions Cup champion at the time. It's just a lot of being a wrestling fan and being familiar with folks. And it's one of those things where there are so many people that I have wanted to book that we had booked for the shows that we've had to cancel, but we are planning to bring in because there are so many talented people out there. And there are so many great folks that want to come into DC and go through the licensing process because they hear what we're doing, they see what we're doing, they support what we're doing. And I am very hopeful that there are folks out there that we have booked that were on one of these shows we had to cancel that we can hopefully bring in. Some folks I'm not going to say, and then I've been more aggressive about putting out some of the names of folks that we had in mind. So hopefully we can run some of these things back that we had planned.
How did you get the Primetime Pro title made, and why was Australia not on the belt?
Well, I think everyone is pretty familiar with my position on Australia. It's also not on the tag team titles, with apologies to Shazza McKenzie. We actually were referred to someone by Ariella Nix because I wanted to know, we want to have a title. That was one of the very first things we agreed, was that we wanted a title belt because we wanted to ensure that there was something that fans would recognize, that we would be here for the duration. We were planning on being here. This was not a one-time deal and something that could represent our company. So all of our belts were made by the same person, designed by the same person, and then manufactured by his contact. And he's a great belt maker. He's made belts for other promotions. He made belts for Booker T's promotion down in Houston. So it was asking around, finding someone, and going through that process, and I'm incredibly happy with the work that he's done so far. And I don't think we'll add any other titles at this point, because we've got a world title, such as it is. We've got a number one title. We've got the 51st state title. We've got the tag belts. We've got the Pride of Primetime, currently AC Mac. I think we're good as far as those kinds of things go.
Although it didn't happen, can you tell us a little bit about how an organization puts together an event at WrestleMania weekend?
So we were going to be working with some other promotions, similar to what you see with some of the bigger independent organizations that do the collective and things like that. It was on a smaller scale, but for our first-time WrestleMania show, it just kind of came together. We were happy to work with Crab and happy to work with Faye on her event, and we were going to kick things off on the Thursday, and Faye was going to close things on the Saturday, and everything was going to be really fun, and we had some really great things going on. So I was part of this group that we talked about what we needed from a venue. We had to move the venue because of some problems. And it was a very cooperative effort, and it would have been a great 3 or 4 days of shows, but that was taken out of our hands, and I don't know if it is in our best interest to run all the way in California. Assuming Mania's in LA and things are a little more back to normal. Running a show across the country has so many other calisthenics that I just want to run another show somewhere at this point.
With Primetime Pro being on IWTV featuring in a Washington Post article, the results and rankings now appearing on PWI, events like Butch vs. Gore trending on Twitter, a collaboration with Action Wrestling, Primetime Pro has been getting a lot of local and national exposure, but what has been your proudest moment in this first year?
Oh, man. Wow. That's a toughie. I have so many proud moments. I have so many moments where I still can't believe that I am a wrestling promoter and we've done 6 shows and we've been together for a year. The after party at DC9 after Grapple City, and everyone there, and everything had come off so wonderfully. The PWI stuff is great. The live stream on IWTV was a big step forward for us. It put us in there with the promotions that we are friendly with, familiar with, and that are at the very top. IWTV has some amazing promotions on there. Beyond, Black Label, our friends at Action, SCI, and we want to be in that same group. We haven't been around as long as they have, and we haven't accomplished as much as they have, especially a group like Beyond. What they've been able to do is staggering to me. But to be part of that group, to get the live stream, and unfortunately one of the shows we had to cancel was planning to be live streamed. So when things come back, we want to continue that relationship. The folks at IWTV have been incredibly generous with us, incredibly helpful to us, and they really have been supportive. I have to say, to be honest, some of the things we've done that have gotten some heat in the wrestling community, I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of the fact that people, show their behinds, for lack of a better word, in putting stuff out there. The tweet after the Joey Ryan and Faye Jackson match where someone tweeted Faye and said, "Oh, I can't believe a promoter forced you to degrade yourself like this." If anyone knows Faye Jackson, they know that no one is going to get Faye to do something she does not want to do. And I think it was very obvious to everyone who follows her on social media that both Joey Ryan and Effie were matches that she really, really wanted, and whatever Faye wants, Faye gets. And it's funny, she was on Shug D's podcast and basically said that.
Yeah.
How much she loved working in Primetime because, I listen to her and I kind of give her what she wants, but she has earned that kind of position. O'Shea Edwards has earned that kind of position. Effie and Frazier and, and Pretty Proper. Pretty Proper wanted to work with Anthony Green and Avery again, and we were putting that together. Unfortunately, that was going to be part of Grapple City 2. Our core people that put butts in seats, that we have a relationship with, have earned those kind of things. So I know that was a long answer to your question, but I have so many moments of pride over the last year.
I thought that might be one of the trickier ones to answer. That podcast, We the Indies, I would definitely recommend. I've mentioned that one a few times, and very, very good to watch out. Yeah.
It is a great podcast because nobody holds back. I mean, Shug D was going to be on our June 28th show that unfortunately was canceled. He is someone that I talk to semi-regularly. I was letting him know how excited I was to see him on AEW. And we talked a lot in February when he challenged O'Shea for the Primetime title at the Action Show. So yeah, that was someone that I was planning on. We had conversations. I mean, it was a done deal. Like, it wasn't just in the air. Like, we were just working at the logistics and figuring it out. And that June 28th show was also going to include the Hospice tournament, and I'm hiding the participants in that because I really want to try to put that together again down the road.
Correct. I know one thing, the PWI thing. I know after the first time it came out, people were really excited. Like, it's the first time my name's actually appeared in this magazine, and same at the second time after Butch versus Gore. I know it made a big difference to wrestlers to see their names appear in that publication.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, for the first time when we had the rankings in there, and, you know, Mac Buckler and I were talking about where are we going to be able to get copies of this, and Ariel and Nix was so excited. And in the second one about Butch versus Gore, when they put in that Lolo had pinned Mark Haggerty, I mean, as someone who grew up on those magazines, I grew up on Wrestling Insider and PWI, you know, they used to call the After Mags after Bill After. Having my promotion recognized and having something of a relationship with PWI is this, you know, fantastic, enormous thing that is a great step forward for us and does put us on the map. You know, wrestlers that aren't familiar with us and fans that aren't familiar with us will say, oh, Primetime Pro Wrestling, and they might recognize names. They're going to recognize O'Shea Edwards. They're going to recognize Effie. You know, they're going to recognize Trish Adora and Faye Jackson and Tasha Steeles and Logan LaRue and so forth. So it puts us in a wonderful position to be able to not only promote our brand, but promote the wrestlers who are so near and dear to our hearts and have gone out there and been the best promoters of this company that we could have ever asked for.
We asked earlier about your initial goals. A year on, have these goals changed, and what are your new goals when Primetime Pro returns?
Very first goal is to have a show. That's our first one. But let me be perfectly clear. I don't want any confusion based on that answer. Primetime Pro Wrestling is coming back. We don't know when, and some of those questions are out of our control. But Primetime Pro Wrestling will be back. The when is only the question. We are going to only do what we are, one, allowed to do by DC, and we are planning on continuing to run in DC. And we are only going to do what's safest for the fans and for the wrestlers. And if that means we have to cancel other upcoming shows and, you know, our path back is a little bit longer than other wrestling companies in other parts of the country that don't have commissions and don't have as stringent of rules as far as social distancing, then so be it. I mean, we're going to do what's the safe thing for everybody. And we've already talked about plans, and Alex, our cameraman, who is incredibly smart and incredibly diligent, has already talked about the cleaning of the ring and the cleaning of the venue and the cleaning of the area. And we've already got things in mind for when we can run a show. So right now, that's the first goal, is to run a show. The second goal would be to run a second show, and so on and so on.
Now, like I say, Mason, you went up. I always let you go first. I'm going to say I'll let you pick what questions you've got, and then I have to try and pick up the scraps. And I knew you had a lot for Gator. A lot of these questions I had, you've partially already answered. I can already see some I'm going to skip. Some I know you've partially answered, so perhaps some of these can be a little bit shorter. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. With all the success you have had this year, is there perhaps one or two things that you would have done differently with having experienced it now?
The things that I would have done differently really point to things that are on me. For example, match placement. Sometimes when you're putting the card together, you really want to have this vision. You want to have this crescendo and so on. I tweeted not that long ago that we don't have any cool-down matches. Every match we have is fire, is hot. But you want to have certain things in certain places for certain reasons. I think this is an area that I have improved a lot on. I think the July show is probably the show that I was the least happy with as far as that. I thought there were just some things like I could have improved on where that went. If I could go back and make a couple of tweaks to not the card, but the placement of things on the card, I would do that. I think we got better in September, and better in November, and better in January. I think we really hit the stride working with Lolo and Billy Dixon on putting that card together for Butch versus Gore. And Billy is actually the one who came up with the match placement for the show. And I looked at it to give my 2 cents, and I was not going to make a suggestion just for the sake of making a suggestion. What Billy put out there was perfect, and I think that show was great for all the reasons. So hindsight being 2020, I think some of the placement on the July show, it's still something that bothers me. It's still something that kind of sticks in my craw. Other than that, I think we have a great crew. I think we have an amazing team of volunteers that's out that just does incredible work. I think we have a great locker room. I don't regret anything as far as that goes. I don't really have any regrets other than some of those things that are just growing pains. You know, we're going to learn from doing, and we're still learning. So other than that, I'm pretty happy with how things have worked out.
Now, when we put our reviews together, Mason normally focuses on the actual wrestling matches itself, and I normally focus on the wrestlers, trying to tell the story perhaps of new wrestlers to the organization, or perhaps things that they talked about after the match and so forth. One of the things I noticed particularly when we review Primetime Pro, and we certainly don't see this from all the organizations that we do, we always see Lolo on there thanking the wrestlers for attending, for putting in all the hard work. You see multiple wrestlers thanking Primetime Pro for the opportunity to appear, thanking the fans, things like that. I've never heard a bad word said from the locker room at all. What makes that locker room so special?
I think a lot of that goes to our brand, and a lot of that goes to Lolo and Tony, who is Lolo's intern and my intern. Tony goes out and he brings in pizza. He brings in Gatorade. We have a box of supplies that has all kinds of stuff that, you know, wrestlers might want. We make sure that there are places for them to plug their phones in. We make sure there's, you know, water and you know, all those kinds of things are taken care of. And not every promotion does that. Not every promotion has the ability to do that. And I do think it's part of that branding strategy that Lolo has been so integral to, that we want folks to go to another locker room and say, oh, Primetime, blah, you know, to wrestlers talk. Wrestlers talk to wrestlers. Promoters talk to promoters. Things come out one way or another, and as we've seen in the last few months with some of the things that have come out that are just horrible, horrible stories, that wrestlers are thankfully being empowered to tell their story, because no one else can. I think, you know, we take a lot of pride in what we're doing, and we want those wrestlers to be able to go to California, Kansas City, Seattle, Chicago, Boston, Florida, Atlanta, Texas, and be able to tell the people in the locker room, oh, Primetime is amazing, they're so good, contact Gator, and this happens. There have been so many people who have talked to me. When I went to SCI last year, so many really talented folks down there wanted to talk to me about being able to come in. And there are so many talented people that are in the Tennessee, Georgia territory that we have a good relationship with the folks down there, that, you know, there's so many great folks down there that I would love to bring in more, that I would love to bring in, that it's just one of those things that we have to find the time. You know, I already wanted to have 8 matches and be done. And then I knew that I could, okay, well, maybe we'll put a 9th one in. And then sometimes we have to put a 10th one in, but we're closing in between 2.5 and 3 hours. You know, there's no show, I don't think, that has gone longer than 3 hours, maybe slightly over 3 hours, but nothing super long. everyone gets taken care of, everyone feels comfortable. If someone doesn't feel comfortable or someone doesn't feel comfortable with us bringing in particular talent, most of the time I have already heard certain things, and so there are just people that are not going to be brought in for one reason or another. Some of it is from wrestlers, some of it's from promoters, but our locker room is very important. There are folks that we are just not going to bring in because they just would not fit in our locker room. And when you hear the same stories and you hear the same things over and over again, and this is what's happened with some of the stuff that's come out recently with wrestling companies in other areas, when you hear the same things and you see wrestlers putting this stuff out on social media, it becomes a little more obvious. So we've never booked a wrestler that we felt we were nervous about. We've always booked wrestlers that have great reputations, who are very professional, who go through a very rigorous process getting through the commission. And it's a testament to Primetime and our reputation and the things we're able to do that folks go through this rigorous process, because there are not very many jurisdictions that require all of these different things. Kentucky has certain requirements that are pretty stringent. Louisiana, Missouri, South Carolina, Maryland has some things, but it's a little bit different. Virginia has a commission and there is a licensing process, but it is not as robust as DC or Maryland. So to go through all of this is really a testament to our reputation and wanting to keep that locker room as positive as possible as part of it.
I know that podcast we talked about earlier, We the Indies. I remember David Starr talking about on the first one or two episodes. I didn't even realize things like that was even an issue, like not having accessibility to water, not having accessibility to food, not having just basic requirements. So yeah, I was shocked when I first heard that podcast. So yeah, that was great to hear. Now, can you also talk about the fans a little bit as well? I know we talked about the fact that you felt it was one of your responsibilities to make sure that people in this area had wrestling. I know you've sold out all 6 shows so far. I know the first one in particular sold out very quickly. I think it was within minutes. I know people have attended first events wrestling. They've never been to wrestling at all before, and they've actually started coming to see. Can you talk a little bit about the fans? Perhaps you know some more stories than we do. We obviously only hear a few things. I'm sure as the as the owner, people will talk to you probably more about that experience.
Well, once again, going back to all the things that Lolo has been able to do for Primetime and what they've been able to give with all of their heart, is opening up the door to have folks who are not wrestling fans, who have never been to a wrestling show. They just don't know that they're wrestling fans. Get them into a building. Every live show that I've been to has always been pretty fantastic. Even bad shows that it comes off really bad on television, live is so good. The atmosphere of DC Brow, and I thought the atmosphere when we ran the Deanwood Rec Center with all the kids there, the community there, was so good and so positive. And Lolo bringing in fans who are brand new to wrestling. But wrestling is this incredible product. It is an amazing, amazing thing that incorporates so many things that people like. Well, you like athletics, you watch football, you watch baseball, you go to concerts, you like fashion, you like this, you like that. And wrestling gives that to you. It's an enormous pageant, for lack of a better word. Or as I kind of look at it, it's the circus. Wrestling is like a circus. There's the lion tamer. If you don't like the lion tamer, there are the clowns. If you don't like the clowns, here's the trapeze artist, and so on. And that's sort of part of the philosophy of the talent we bring in, how we put together a card. And once folks come in, so many people can't wait to buy a ticket for their next show. Can't wait to come back. And I think Butch versus Gore had more of that than any show, because we were reaching out to the community and bringing in even more people who had never been to a wrestling show. and all of the things surrounding that and all the positivity surrounding that. Thankfully, the show happened because that was sort of the very end of things being even close to normal. That we have our core group of fans that have been fans of the wrestling in the area for a long time, and we have so many new fans and folks that didn't even know that there was independent wrestling in DC. I sat next to someone at the first AEW show in DC because we were running our show later that week, or we had just run our show. I don't remember. Anyway, it was right that day. First Dynamite show was either immediately after ours or immediately before us. I think immediately before us. Anyway, so I just talking to someone sitting behind us at the show about DC and independent wrestling and all of this. So there's lots of wrestling fans out there, and there's lots of wrestling fans who love coming to live shows. It's our responsibility to make them aware. It's our responsibility to bring in folks, and Lolo has done an obscenely good job with that. So I'm very, very grateful for all of the fan support, everything that they've continued to do, even during the lockdown. We still stay in touch with folks, and they still ask about what they can do to support the wrestlers and support Primetime. So we have a really, really great group of folks.
We have found out on Twitter that almost every wrestler seems to have a strange eating habit. Have you tried Savage Gentleman's peanut butter egg challenge, and do you have any strange foods that you eat?
I refuse to put Savage Gentleman over and participate in that. I absolutely refuse. I love Savage Gentleman, and I love Lady Frost. They are friends, you know. They are awesome, amazing people. But I absolutely refuse to put him over with the peanut butter and egg thing.
I don't think I've ever seen his wife try it, so I think you're probably perfect. If she's not prepared to try it, I'm sure you're perfectly.
No, I think we're in the same boat. I think we both refuse to put him over. As far as unusual food things, I think the most unusual food thing are my food takes about soup being cereal, and hot dog sandwiches being sandwiches, and certain things being raviolis and so on. Now, people get really upset about this on Twitter, and that makes me laugh because obviously this is ridiculous and tongue-in-cheek and silly, but it's just one of those things that people like to debate and talk about and just get into. But some folks do get like worked up about it. I don't understand that at all, especially when there are so many more important things to get worked up about in the world. I don't like mushrooms. I am not a mushroom person at all. I did not eat Brussels sprouts until the last few years, and I love Brussels sprouts now. My favorite pizza toppings are pepperoni, sausage, and ricotta cheese. And I only drink red Gatorade of the Gatorades. And that Gatorade Frost gimmick, I think it's called Gatorade Frost, that new icy whatever, that's terrible. I've tried a few different flavors. That's terrible. I don't drink coffee. I drink coffee like 4 or 5 times a year when either I'm nursing a bad evening from the night before or something. But I very, very rarely drink coffee. I drink tea. I drink cocoa. Other than that, I think all my food eating habits are pretty straightforward. I can't think of anything. When I was a kid, I used to dunk peanut butter and jelly in milk.
Oh, well, I don't know. That should have been the first thing that comes up. To me, that's I don't know about you, Mason. I've never heard of that. I did see somebody recently, but I think they were joking. I think even O'Shea tweeted this. Somebody dipping pizza into milk. I was like, whoa.
Oh, yes. I saw that tweet. That was absolutely awful. Pizza into milk. No, peanut butter and jelly into milk. I'm sorry I buried the lead there. Peanut butter and jelly into milk as a kid. I don't do that anymore. The use of mayonnaise is obscenely just absolutely horrible. And I love Asuka's YouTube channel, but she eats almost everything with mayonnaise. But it's usually mayonnaise with something else, or it's a special kind of mayonnaise, I think. But her recent video where she made octopus balls, she just put soy sauce, and then at the very end she put mayonnaise on it. It was a little too far for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, peanut butter and jelly, like on really bad for you white bread. Like I wouldn't try this with like any kind of garlicky gimmick or anything, but peanut butter and jelly on, I don't even know if they make Wonder Bread anymore, but something like that that's horrendous for you. It's like the crystal meth of food dipped into milk. That was definitely my gimmick when I was a kid.
That definitely meets the criteria. I would say we're going to keep asking this question because we keep finding more and more entertaining answers from it.
So can you tell us the best way to find Primetime Pro on social media?
Absolutely. You can follow Primetime on Twitter at PrimetimePW, all one word. You can follow us on Instagram at Primetime Pro Wrestling. You can like and follow, whatever they call it, on Facebook at Primetime Pro Wrestling. You can follow me on Twitter at the Mister Gator. Mister is spelled out, all one word. And please follow Lolo on Twitter at HellbenderLo.
And if you have IWTV as well, I would definitely recommend checking out Primetime Pro Wrestling on there as well. I think I've seen some stuff on YouTube as well, right? I think you have your own YouTube channel?
Yes, I totally forgot. I just completely buried our YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel. We've put up 4 or 5 matches, and we're going to do more with that. We're going to have, when we have a tournament, we're going to have the tournament drawing on there. We're going to, if we get into the cinematic wrestling stuff that everyone is really into right now, we would put it on the YouTube. So yes, subscribe to us on YouTube at Primetime Pro Wrestling. And if you're not on IWTV, sign up for 5 free days using the promo code PTPW19.
There you go. Perfect.
Thank you so much for appearing. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, guys. I look forward to seeing you at a wrestling event in the near future.
It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from them.
Goodbye.
The music was Zigzag by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. http://creativecommons.org/licenses/by/3.0/
You are listening to